You ready?
I'm ready, Shaky.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another I Had Too Much Habanero Sauce with my rap last night, and I'm paying for it today episode of Poddywood. I am one of your co-hosts, Steve Hester, and with me as always is...
I am Andrew Roger Carson. I am suffering with real bad dose of hay fever because people outside have been cutting grass. Hi.
That's with insure for you. What have they been cutting the grass with? That's what I want to know.
Yes, they're either smoking it or they're actually sniffing at something else.
Yes. Well, anyway, welcome to Poddywood. This is the show where we talk about movies with the people that make movies. This week, unfortunately we don't have a guest because we've had to arrange for our interview with Richard Mirish to be pushed back another week. So I'm afraid this week you just got us.
What happened was I got the dates kind of mixed up. I thought Richard was on this week, and it wasn't. He's actually booked for next week. And it's not unfortunate because we're still committed to bringing you a show. And today we're going to be doing something a little bit special. If anything, we have rescued the show this week. And speaking of rescues, Steve, let's talk about what's in the box from last week.
Rescue Dawn, which is a 2006 Werner Herzog movie starring Christian Bale, and it's a true story about a guy called Dieter Dangler, someone who sounds like he's got his name from Boogie Nights.
That sounds like a Tex Avery cartoon character, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, but it was a 2006 movie that was written and directed by Werner Herzog when he's not busy trying to kidnap Baby Yoda. And it's based on a 1997 documentary that he did about this real-life story about a guy who crashes in the jungle of Laos while on a Black Ops mission for the US Navy. The documentary was called Little Dieter Needs to Fly.
Yes.
And while some of it plays kind of fast and loose with the original guy's books, detailing his experiences, particularly the characterization of some of the people that were in there, it's a really interesting film. It's got a very, very retro kind of documentary feel to it. It does not feel like it was made in 2006. It feels like it was made more in kind of
Much
like the
earlier.
early 80s. Yeah. There's something about the way that the camera work is. It's got a very, very documentary style feel to it. The performances themselves have got lots of improv. It feels very real. And the characters, they don't really stick to any kind of archetype. I mean, even the protagonist, Dieter, who, like I said, is played by Christian Bale, comes off as a bit of a dick a lot of the time. I don't know if that's the direction that was given, or it was kind of Bale's interpretation of the real person, or if it was just his interpretation of the character as it stands in the movie. But he comes across as rather unlikable at some times. But then again, so does everybody else. No one really conforms to, oh, he's the good guy, he's the bad guy, he's doing this, he's doing that. That's the comic relief. Everyone feels like an actual human being. And I really like that about it. The one thing that is worth noticing, and you will notice this very early on, is the fact that the cast are very emaciated. Because they're supposed to be playing prisoners of war. And we're talking about people that have been in a POW camp for, I think one of them says he's been in there for about 2 years at that point. So these people are skinny. And the actors themselves had to drastically lose weight. And there's two that are listed down on IMDb. The first, obviously, is Christian Bale, who's said to have lost about 55 pounds. And the other is Steve Zahn, and he lost 40 pounds.
Also, Jeremy Davis
Yes.
lost 33 pounds.
Or was it 33? Well, in that case,
Yes.
it's already skinny. I mean, he kind of looks like, what's his name? Charles Manson throughout the whole thing, doesn't he?
He does. And the way they kind of achieved this was they actually shot in reverse. Mm-hmm. So they'd lost all their weight for the roles. And obviously they were putting weight on as they were filming. So realistically, this movie was shot in reverse.
The one thing, though, that I would like to point out is that even though they were filming it in reverse order, Steve Zahn in particular still had to be really emaciated at both the beginning of the film and the end. Okay, slightly more so at the end. But that must be really galling if you're on set with someone and you're having to just eat the bare minimum to keep yourself going and keep this really trim figure, and then your co-star is coming in and he's like put on another 5 pounds overnight because he had a massive meal at the hotel or whatever it is that you were staying at. That must be so annoying.
True, but, Christian Bale is always very committed to his roles. So much so, he was actually eating those worms for real.
Yes, he was. There's a scene in the movie where he gets given what looks like a plate of chicken feet covered in mealworms. And then he gobbles them up himself, stuffs them in his face. Speaking of Christian Bale losing weight, that was actually a pretty difficult time for him, realistically, in terms of staying at one weight. Because he went from The Machinist, where he was probably even thinner than he is in this movie,
yes,
to massively bulking up, perhaps too much so for Batman Begins at the start of shooting. Then he had to lose more weight before they could actually properly shoot because he just looked too big. Then he went off to do this and had to go through the whole process yet again.
And then go back to do The Dark Knight, in which case he's bulked up again. Wow.
So, yeah, man. And now he's ended up doing, what was it? It was the political figure that he ended up playing.
Oh, in Vice.
Cheney?
I think so, yeah. I was going to say Donald Rumsfeld, but
for some reason I thought
Cheney.
I thought it was Ron Cheney. I don't know why.
Lon Chaney.
Lon Chaney. I was Lon Chaney's lover. But no, I've never seen a Werner Herzog. I've never seen a Werner Herzog picture before. Never experienced the human conditions whose eyes were German. But it was a fun watch. It was a lot more enjoyable than I thought it was going to be. It's an enrapturing film. It's a captivating film. The performances definitely do drag you along. The situations feel very, very real. And a couple of nice little touches in there. Like, for example, the character of Gene has got on his back. It's very noticeable in one scene where they sat down to dinner. He's got Quo Vadis, which is Latin. And that translates to, where are you going? And then later on, when, spoiler alert, they do escape from the camp, he's basically wandering around going, where am I going? Where do I go? And it's a nice little kind of touch that the guy's completely lost without being inside this prison. He's developed such a Stockholm syndrome and attachment to it all that he doesn't really want to leave. Really, he does got no real conception of where to go.
Yes, and the good thing is you're probably going to come across a lot of Werner Herzog's movies during What's in the Box, because he has done so many classic movies and documentaries as well. Mm-hmm. So you'll become very well acquainted to him. But a good point about this is the story doesn't actually show that Dieter Degler was actually captured twice in real life. And this is kind of really focused around his second capture, without mentioning anything about it being caught once before and escaped. So, it is a very interesting story. I watched it again myself, and I think some of the regulars who listen in have also gone and discovered this film as well after not seeing it. Mm-hmm. And it is, just a really well-made, well-lit,
yes,
and
very much so,
very well-shot movie.
Yeah,
very patient.
It's not rushed at all. Everything has got a chance to let itself grow and develop naturally. Nothing in it feels like it's forced.
Yeah, this prison camp is not your Rambo First Blood Part 2 prison camp. It's very authentic. Mm-hmm. And you can just see, obviously, with Werner's very crazed style of directing and what he puts his actors through, I can imagine that Christian Bale, some of his reactions to some of the things going on was utterly genuine.
Yeah, let's just focus on Christian Bale for a minute, because he's one of these people that he does a lot of character work, but he still just comes across as kind of Christian Bale, but slightly angry. And it was really weird in this movie to see him smile.
Yes, I remember the one scene I always that jumps out to me right now as I'm thinking back on it is, I think, when he's playing Russian roulette with him or something like that, and he absolutely loses it. But you can swear this is not actually the character of Dieter Degler. This is actually Christian Bale, who's probably had enough. It wouldn't surprise me, knowing Werner Herzog, if there was actually a real bullet in that gun.
There probably was, because, I mean, it wouldn't be the first time a filmmaker shot live ammunition at someone.
No, but it's like Christian Bale. He's like, do not point that gun at me again. Do not do it again. And it's like, I have a feeling he's not actually acting.
No, he's not actually talking to the guy with the gun. He's talking with Werner Herzog's just off camera going, points the gun at his head and pulls the trigger. Obviously, just a bit to the left.
The impending enchantment of man's doom.
Also, it's Salisbury steak tonight at the cafeteria.
So yes, I think you enjoyed what's in the box for this week.
I did enjoy it when you pulled it out the other week, and I thought it was
about that, Steve. I'm talking about the movie. Yeah.
And it was a like a Vietnam movie. All I could think of was, oh no, this is going to be another casualties of war. This is going to be a horrible kind of painful thing, which is going to cut me to the quicker. But no, I think this is more about the positive side of the human condition more than anything else, trying to stay focused and overcome the odds that are presented in front of you. It's a more upbeat, even though it does deal with some horrible things, because I mean they're in a prisoner of war camp, but it does feel more upbeat than something like Casualties of War. And like I say, it's based on a true story. This is a real guy who was in the real Navy, and he left about a year after his experiences, went on to become a commercial pilot, and it says at the end of the film he crashed a total of 4 more times, and then apparently he then went on to change his name to Harrison Ford. So
I wondered where you were going with that. But yes,
hey!
Rescue Dawn is 15 years old. It's well worth finding, so it's kind of celebrating an anniversary this week, like one other movie on our radar.
We watch them again all of the time, or we get them on Prime for free. But we only know how old they are when we learn their anniversary.
Put them wagons into a square.
That's the one I said last week.
I know, I wrote it down because I wanted to use it to make you happy.
I was just going to go, let's go cornhole ourselves a drunk. So anyway, only one anniversary this week. But in truth, there is one kind of celebrating its release this week, which I'm sure in a couple of years, 10 years, whatever, we'll be saying, finally. Because Free Guy gets released this week.
Yes, well, I know the plot. It's a guy who finds out that he's an NPC in a video game, but it also kind of just reminds me a little bit of They Live, because he gets these glasses and he starts seeing the world as it really is. So it kind of looks like a PG version of that.
I'm glad you picked up on that, because I was thinking the exact same thing. And for people who haven't seen They Live, you need to go and discover this movie.
Oh, it's so good.
It's ridiculously funny. One of the greatest back alley fight scenes you will ever see in the history of movies. This thing does not end. I'm convinced they're still going to this day.
It's got a record, hasn't it, of being like the longest continuous fight scene without any cuts or edits or something like that.
The movie would only be 1 hour and 5 minutes long if not for this fight scene. Yeah. I guarantee you. But anyway.
Before you carry on a side note, in Saints Row 4, you've got a guest appearance by both Keith David, who's popped up in the series lots of times to date, and Rowdy Roddy Piper, and they recreate the fight scene from They Live in the video game.
That is genius.
With Rowdy Roddy Piper going, "No, Keith, no, it's me, you're in a game." And they just keep beating the shit out of each other. It's brilliant.
Oh, that is genius. God bless Rowdy Roddy Piper. He passed away a number of years ago, right around this time as well.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
What a legend. But anyway, speaking of which, our anniversary is a movie celebrating 10 years this week, and it is Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Right.
Have you seen it?
I haven't, no. To be honest, I've never really been a big fan of the Apes series. I've seen a couple of the original ones from the 70s with Charlton Heston, and I've seen the first two, and I've seen the one where they end up going back in time and the two apes leave a baby ape. That's it.
Okay, well, the original is a classic.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes was...
Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes.
It was Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes. That's all we can say. It's not fondly remembered by anyone, I don't think. I remember that was one of the biggest disappointments I had of the 2000s. But I will admit here, I am really digging these recent Planet of the Apes movies. Starting with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and a favourite of mine is War of the Planet of the Apes, which is absolutely incredible. It really is. It's such a relief because even the original sequels to the original Planet of the Apes starring Charlton Heston were really bad.
Yeah, they were.
They ranged from passable to pretty bad. So actually having someone who really cares about this franchise, even though now they're over at Disney because they were Fox franchise, and we'll probably have Rise of the Planet of King Louis or something like that.
Something, yeah, it'll be the Jungle Book variation of it.
It's
directed
like
by
waiting
Jon Favreau.
It's like waiting to see what they're going to do with the Predator. I'm thinking, God, this is going to be so bad. Please don't let it be bad. Please don't let it be as bad as the last one was anyway.
Well, one thing that I will say, though, even though I haven't seen it, I do know that it wasn't the first time that Andy Serkis played a monkey.
It's very true. He was Kong.
Yep.
He was Gollum.
Gollum, yeah. He's done loads of motion capture, and getting back onto video game, he also played the character of Monkey in Enslaved, Odyssey to the West, which is based on the Chinese story of Monkey and Triptych and their Odyssey to the West. So he's literally played a character called Monkey before now.
So if they're going to make a movie of The Secret of Monkey Island, you know he's getting that call, right?
Oh, they already have done it. It's called Pirates of the Caribbean. The guys that made the game took their influence from the ride, and then the ride got made into a film, so it's already been done.
Oh, well, there you go. There you go. Well, yeah, that is the anniversary for this week. I think it's a really good film. Steve obviously is not a fan of the franchise.
I could be easily swayed by the new ones. I just haven't got around to watching them yet.
Well, you will, because they're in the box. So, this week, we do not have a guest. So we decided, you know what? There is enough going on in the world of movies that I wanted to bring to the attention. So we thought, we have our little sister show, Poddywood After Dark, which is exclusive for our Patreon subscribers, especially Luke and all of the others that hopefully are on there that I can't be asked remembering their names for. But I'm a busy man. I'm trying to get you content. So we decided, why don't we introduce special Poddywood After Dark as the main focus of our show, as we can concentrate on some of the stories currently going around and give our take on them. So, let's head over to our luxurious jazz bar setting of Poddywood After Dark.
Welcome to Poddywood After Dark, because you paid enough for Rated R.
Yeah, here we are in this luxurious jazz bar
Setting. And you'll notice in the background we have Susie on sax.
Yep.
We have Tom serving us drinks.
Oh, it's Tom now, is it?
It's Tom. Last week on the show, I accidentally killed Tom off by a passing comment, but he's our original barman. It's Steve who can never remember his name.
That's because there's three of them, you see. There's Tom, Mark, and Tony.
So occasionally we may even get guests coming in. But this week we've decided to hit the bar early and start talking about some of this news that is currently out there. And I want to hear Steve's take on it because I know he doesn't keep up with a lot of the stuff going on in the industry.
No, not really.
But it will be interesting to hear what you think of some of these stories I have got from the Poddywood rag.
Oh, that chip paper thing then. Yeah.
Yes, the thing you can find in the midsection of the big issue.
Bless you.
Thank you. So what have we got to talk about this week? Well, the first story I wanted to get out is something that literally broke today. Bam Margera is now suing the Jackass 4 team for psychological torture.
Right. Okay. Yes. Well, this one's a bit of a weird one.
Very weird one.
Right. Obviously, if you're going to be in something like Jackass, then you're going to be slightly unhinged to begin with. You know, nobody puts themselves through the kind of physical and mental torture that they put themselves through on a regular basis when they were making the series and making the films. But after Jackass 3, Ryan Dunn was killed in a car accident. I can't remember the exact details, but Ryan Dunn was Bam Margera's closest friend. I think the two of them had grown up together, and they certainly entered Jackass together. Now, after that, it became noticeable that Bam Margera was on a downward spiral.
Major downward spiral. Possibly the biggest downward spiral of anybody in Hollywood currently.
And we're talking massively self-destructive here. He's completely unrecognizable. And I get that he's more or less the same kind of age that we are. When you get to your early 40s, your body kind of gives up on you anyway. But no, this is something more. And a lot of the problems seem to be psychological. Now, when Steve-O was going through similar issues, he was going through an awful lot of substance abuse. Some serious substance abuse. And the rest of the team apparently gathered round and were able to sort him out. And the Steve-O that you see in Jackass 2 and Jackass 3 is completely different, because in Jackass 3 he's clean. And the guys around him were saying, no, we were sponsored by beer. We were sponsored by Miller. And they said, no, we're not having that on the set. You can keep that away, because we want to try and keep as much of that dangerous stuff away from Steve-O to protect him. And from what I can gather, a lot of the similar stuff has been happening with Bam. They've been trying to encourage him to come in, they've been trying to get him support and everything. But it seems to be that Bam doesn't want that help.
Well, basically, Bam has now been precluded from taking part in Jackass 4 that is getting released. I think it's later this year, I'm not sure. Now, I've been following this kind of story recently. Bam does have this high-profile struggle with addiction. The people on Jackass and his friends, they did convince the studio, MTV, Paramount, that he should appear in Jackass 4. Paramount had a condition, and the condition was that he had to sign this wellness agreement. So it was consenting to breathalyzer tests. He had to have his urine examined, his hair follicles tested, and his medication had to be monitored by a doctor via an online kind of like Zoom or something along that time.
Makes sense.
Now, Bam agreed to that, and then he broke that contract, and he was fired earlier this year. And since then, Bam has been completely unhinged by what we're seeing in regards to the production team. Basically, what's happened now is he's been slapped with a restraining order because he reportedly had threatened Steve Tremaine's wife and children.
Jeff Tremaine.
What did I say?
You said Steve Tremaine.
But my apologies, Jeff Tremaine. Now he's responding with legal action of his own. He's filed this lawsuit now against Paramount Pictures, MTV, Jeff Tremaine, as well as Knoxville, Spikes Johns, and everyone else involved in Jackass 4. Bam Margera needs help.
He does.
What he doesn't need is some legal team basically smelling money. And they say it's psychological torture. But Bam is making the situation worse for himself, and he's probably got the worst people behind him, people who should be saying, you know what, you need to step away from this and sort your life out. Apparently, this breach in his contract, apparently he was fired because he tested positive for Adderall. The studio was aware, apparently, that he had been prescribed this to treat his ADHD. The suit kind of against Paramount now, they're saying that this wellness agreement is in breach of California's Fair Employment and Housing Act. So they're saying it's, a violation, wrongful discharge, unlawful retaliation, whatever. But Margera is now going on and saying that he deserves full credit for creating Jackass. He says the show wouldn't exist if it wasn't for him and his original CKY videos, and he's entitled to a share of all of these profits. And that screams lawyers pushing for money.
Yeah, it kind of does. It just, although having said that though, you will find a lawyer that will take on anybody.
And they will bleed him dry to the point where Bam will be left as a homeless guy pissing behind a dumpster.
Yeah.
Within a year. What needs to happen is for Bam to step away from the spotlight. He is burning so many bridges by doing this. And at the end of the day, if he was fired for taking a prescribed medication, and if Paramount and MTV and that were aware of it, yeah, he's going to get a chance at compensation.
Yeah, okay. No, I'll give him that.
Right? That's fair enough. But saying he deserves the full credit for Jackass,
No.
That is somebody basically pulling the strings there.
That was why, going back to the creation of Jackass, if you look at the beginning of it, the first series wasn't available on home video or DVD for quite a while because there were so many legal rights surrounding it, because a lot of the clips that were used in that first series were from CKY. There were also, you also had stuff that was filmed independently by Steve-O, and he was doing all his own stuff. You had Johnny Knoxville was filming all his own stuff. Then you had people like Preston and Weeman, and I think they were coming in to kind of like bulk out the rest of the show. So you had different properties already that were trying to combine all their video footage into one series, and it didn't end up being solidified and becoming Jackass proper until the second series, when they were starting to be able to come up with ideas together and put the show out together. So you can't really say that you were the single mind behind it all when you had all the rest of it going on.
No, they all became famous together through Jackass.
Yeah.
It is not as if Bam did every single one of those stunts himself.
No.
He deserves his credit for making CKY and Viva La Bam and whatever else. But Jackass was something about people coming together.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sorry, but people were doing prank videos and all stuff like that way before Jackass and CKY, just on a really small level. I shot a bloody home movie of me running into a bloody security wall way before Jackass as a teenager.
I was going to say, were you drunk or a kid?
Well, it was a security show, and I was not realistically a kid. I was like 20.
Were you drunk?
I was.
Yeah, there you go.
But I'm not suing Jackass, am I?
No.
So, okay, so that's one of the stories. Second story, this is going to be one that's really going to get into a debate for us.
Okay.
Apparently, Robert Pattinson is unhappy with DC using multiple versions of Batman. Oh, yes. And look at it this way, there were a lot of people and fans who spoke out about Robert Pattinson being Bruce Wayne. But I admit that the trailer that I've seen, it looks really good. I've got to admit, and I am anxious to see what he's going to do.
Right.
But at the moment, we've still got Ben Affleck as Batman. We've got Michael Keaton returning as Batman. Apparently, they're doing a Batman Beyond movie where Michael Keaton will be the older Bruce Wayne in that.
Cool.
There's going to be Terry McGinnis, which is going to be cool. And apparently, Robert Pattinson is not happy about this competition of this role.
Right, on the one hand, I can kind of see where he's coming from, because we are now entering into the world of the multiverse.
Yes.
It's been, I think the first kind of hint of that was maybe in Doctor Strange. And then, if anyone's seen Loki, spoilers if you haven't seen Loki, that properly breaks open the can of worms to do with the multiverse. Now, That's in Marvel. If you look at DC, you've got stuff like The Flash has been doing multiverse stuff for ages. And they've been bringing all sorts in. And they've had, I think they already, have they had the Flashpoint paradox? Because I think they were doing like a TV version of that, where you had Dean Cain.
They have in the TV series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you've already got the multiverse stuff going on over there. Now, from the point of view of the character, look at the last decade. Suddenly went Australia there. You looked at the last decade.
Right, Aussie man, nice of you to join us.
Yeah, if you look at the last decade, then you've got 3 actors playing Batman in 3 very different styles of the film. You've got very gritty and realistic stuff with Christian Bale. You've got slightly more comic booky stuff with Ben Affleck, and now you've got this new one with Robert Pattinson, which seems to be going down the very dark, gritty, and violent route. So you can't say that you should only be the one person to play this role. If that's the case, then what's going to happen with the rest of it? Look at Shakespeare. You can't just say, oh no, we can only have one version of Macbeth. It doesn't work. You've got loads of people playing Macbeth. So why on earth should that be any different than with Batman?
I'm looking at it from a certain point here where I might be able to understand. And if this is right, then there is a bit of logic to it. Look throughout the history of all the Batman movies and everything. Has there been a Batman or a person cast as Batman who has ever faced a point where he shelved between 2 different Batmans at the same time?
All right, no, I'll give you that. I think the closest that you could possibly swing for would be Val Kilmer, but he was the Batman in between 2 Batmen.
Exactly, but not being a Batman being filmed, creating a new kind of reboot / franchise in between 2 existing ones that they're still carrying on with. That is a hard situation to be in.
Yeah.
Especially if you wanted to create a certain version your fans of Michael Keaton and the fans of Affleck are still getting their versions. What this creates is a very difficult avenue for another Batman to make it. It's never been done before.
Would you say that the Justice League is probably responsible for really muddying the waters with this then? Because with that coming out, they would have reinvigorated the interest in Ben Affleck's Batman.
I think that Robert Pattinson's Batman is sandwiched into this kind of situation between the Snyderverse and Warner Brothers DC. It's a tough one because fans are siding with the Snyderverse, and rightly so, because the Justice League there was fantastic, whereas Warner Brothers' version of Justice League was abysmal. It literally was, cut up loads of pieces of film, throw it into a blender and see what comes out.
Well, yeah.
And, their plan was, let's scrap the Batman with Affleck that we were doing, that Jay worked on as well. They scrapped that, which apparently was absolutely amazing in the script form, in order to do this Robert Pattinson's Batman, which was met, I wouldn't even say lukewarm. I think fans dived all over this like it was a slap in the face.
Okay, this has happened before. When Michael Keaton first got offered the role of Batman, there was lots of people saying, no, a comedian can't play Batman. And he did it really well. When Heath Ledger got offered the role of the Joker, everyone was saying, no, he's a pretty boy rom-com star, he can't play a Joker, and he did it really well. I still am struggling to get over, even though I know that Robert Pattinson has done lots of really good stuff in the interim. He's worked really, really hard to build himself as a legitimate actor with stuff like The Lighthouse, but I cannot get him out of my head as being the guy from Twilight. And in my head, I cannot marry that person with Batman. It's like trying to have Coke and milk at the same time. It doesn't work.
We understand that was obviously the franchise that catapulted Robert Pattinson, but it was not a joyous showcase.
No.
It has more haters than lovers of it. This is not Harry Potter. This is actually the reverse of Harry Potter. It was a much loathed... I think it was one of the first instances where I saw a movie franchise was loathed by people.
It gave us 50 Shades of Grey, for God's sake.
Yeah. Exactly. But what we've got to really look at here is I do feel a little bit of sympathy for how it might not be fair competition for Robert Pattinson's Batman. And I've seen the trailer they put out for it. It looks brilliant. I've got to admit, it looks really good. And apparently this is going to be like 3 hours long, this movie. And the characters all look great. It looks sinister. It's really dark. It's probably going to be rated R, which is fantastic. I hope it is. I really want to see this kind of dark stuff that you see in the animated movies, like in the stuff that Jay's done and Sam Liu and everyone else does. But I do feel it is a bit unfair because it was greenlit. It got put back. A lot of work has been put into it. Nick even worked on it, doing stunts as well. And I think too many people fell in love with this whole multiverse thing. We can just do it as well. But the competition to go up against Ben Affleck's Batman and Michael Keaton's Batman, who are established and loved, and your movie being sandwiched between them, it's really harsh.
This is why I think that Warner Brothers doesn't have any balls. They are so focused on trying to ape what is happening in the MCU, they're neglecting what they actually have. They're neglecting their potential storylines that they could build themselves. Make their original movies the way that they were intending to do. Instead of just rushing and trying to chase after this thing that you're constantly catching up with. It's pointless because ultimately you're going to be comparing yourself to someone else as opposed to standing on your own 2 feet and creating your own stuff.
For that, I do want Robert Pattinson's Batman to break out. And I do want it to be a hit because I think it deserves to be. With all the work that's been put into it, it's a unique vision. And comic book fans, and this is me speaking as a comic book movie fan as well, they are kind of dicks sometimes when it comes to Friday. I think we can all agree because we can be. It's like we want it to be a certain way and we're going to review bomb shit. We are going to review bomb this movie because it's not our version of it.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel is going to happen with Robert Pattinson's Batman. Before it's even released, it is going to get review bombed, which is unfair. And you people should just stop. Stop being so goddamn self-entitled. Give the movie a chance. If you want more Batmans, don't bloody firebomb your chances of them continuing. Watch it, take it for what it is, and just enjoy the fact that you've got it. 20 years ago, you had to wait 4 or 5 years to get a decent comic book movie. Now you're getting, 2 a month?
Something like that.
Stop pissing in your own well. Watch the damn movies and enjoy the fact that you've got them. Well, I have some news for you, Steve.
Go on then, Andrew.
And this is either going to make you incredibly happy or really angry.
Go on, which one is it?
Okay. In an article that basically says, Lucasfilm reportedly developing the biggest Star Wars movie yet.
Okay.
Basically, apparently, this future movie in the franchise is going to be the biggest and costliest one yet, which is even more room for concern. It's not going to be Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron.
Pity that.
So it's going to be either one of the ones dated for 2025 or 2027. And it's going to come from Kevin Feige and Taika Waititi, respectively.
Right, now that last bit, that works quite well, because anyone who's talked to me about Star Wars will know that I have very little to no love for the sequel movies. I still think that The Last Jedi is by far and away the worst big budget movie that I've ever seen. And increasing the budget of a movie like that does not necessarily mean that you're going to get a good film.
The Last Jedi is the biggest budgeted Star Wars movie that was ever made. Apparently it set the studio back as much as, I think it was around 320 million.
And it's a sack of shit. I'm not even going to mince it, because I know that you said in the past to me that I need to be careful what I say about movies, because just in case I end up pissing off someone who we might get in the show. No, as far as this movie is concerned, I hate it. I think it is absolute fucking garbage.
And yet, while you have a really good soft spot for Solo, the extensive reshoots on that pushed the budget towards 300 million. Disney, so far, haven't made a movie from Star Wars that's cost less than $250 million. And if this movie they talk about is set to be the biggest ever, it's probably going to be one of the most expensive projects in history.
Yeah, but it doesn't need to.
It doesn't need to.
It doesn't need to be that at all. You know, if you wind that back and look at the originals, I think the first one was made for 14. That was on top of the original. No, it was made for about 14 million, but the original budget was something like about 9 or 10 million. Now, okay, you've got a relatively unknown filmmaker, because he only really had THX 1138 and American Graffiti out at the time. And you don't need to throw shit tons of cash at something. You just need to have a good script, good characters, and a fun adventure. That's it. Everything else, you could just stick them on a planet and just do something with that. Okay, yeah, I know it's called Star Wars, but they're trapped on a planet somehow, and they have to get off it. There you go, boom. That way you can pick somewhere, like, I don't know, a jungle or something to film in. Boom, you've done it. You don't have to just keep throwing money at it, because as it's proved, you could throw as much money as you want at it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be any good.
Which, funnily enough, leaks into our next story.
Which is?
I don't even know where to start with this one. I'll start with the name. Vin Diesel.
Right.
Reportedly wants time travel in the next Fast and Furious. Okay.
Right. Before you carry on, I did read somewhere, and it said that any long-running series, when it runs out of steam, because they automatically will when they start running so long, will ultimately resort to time travel.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, how insane do you need a series to actually get? They may as well just go, oh, f*** it. Whatever. Throw everything in. I've heard this one about the Jurassic World crossover.
Yeah.
And now it's time travel. And, you know, what the hell?
Right, yet again.
I mean, come on.
This is my point about budget and everything. The budgets of the Fast and the Furious movies have got bigger and bigger and bigger. The spectacles got bigger and bigger and bigger. And ages ago, when we were doing our little special where we were talking about the movies which we think deserve a bit more recognition, we came up with Ronin.
Yes.
And that is a perfect example of a really tight, small budget film which has amazing car chases in it, done for realistically. Now, if you were to take something like Fast and the Furious, shrink it all down, trim off all the fat, get rid of all of the exhaustive CGI that's going on in there, and just focus on making a really tight, genuine, action-packed car movie with real stunts, you could invigorate that franchise once again.
Yeah, I think, no pun intended, it's time to park it.
Yeah.
All right? It is time just to say you've not only jumped the shark, you've jumped the shark, reversed, turned into a submarine and blew the fucker up.
Yeah.
And then ate it.
Never mind crossing over with Jurassic World. Should get him to cross over with the Transformers.
Oh, don't. I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. I honestly cannot sit through. I know Fast 9 is there, and I know I'm gonna have to watch it at some point, but I can't do this. I see friends of mine who are intelligent, well-educated people, and they're there checking in, watching F9.
Which for me is just a button on a keyboard.
Exactly. You know, I don't even know what F9 does, but I guarantee you it makes more sense than Fast and Furious 9.
On a MacBook, it skips or fast forwards.
Right, which is what we should actually do with the rest of this franchise.
There we go. My God, that has lined up well, hasn't it?
That has lined up brilliantly. You know, I'd be happy with that. But yeah, well, as soon as I read it, I was like, really? You know, I can't stand this. I can't do it anymore. You know, obviously a hell of a lot of fun to make, but for me, it's painful to watch. I like a bit of reality, you know, or something that's...
They left reality behind a long time ago, my friend.
Time travel. Oh. So, what do you kind of think about all this? The cancel culture is kind of now focusing in on Chris Pratt.
Oh, what's he done now?
Nothing, which is exactly highlights what the problem with cancel culture is. Right now, apparently, he was absent from a fundraiser, an Avengers-themed fundraiser that was being held by Joe Biden's presidential campaign.
Right.
And because he didn't take part in it, everyone on Twitter basically started calling him homophobic white supremacist.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. He did absolutely nothing. And yeah, I know that he got in some trouble over some poorly worded Twitter post when he was promoting one of his movies. I think it was Onward. Robert Downey Jr. didn't attend this fundraiser either.
And no one's having a go at him.
And no one's having a go at him. You know, and now there's a movement going around where they're asking, well, these cancel culture morons suggesting that Jack Black replaced Chris Pratt for every role he's ever done in his entire career.
God, right. I've had it up to here with cancel culture right now, because you cannot say or do or think anything without someone on the internet getting massively offended by it. There's probably someone out there that's just listened to what I've said just then and then got offended by the fact that they've now been offended by it.
Yeah.
No, this is the thing. Right, if you're going to bring up something that you did in the past, if you bring up something which I put on social media about 10 years ago, that isn't me now. That was me 10 years ago. And anyone that says that the same person 10 years on is absolutely lying. Attitudes change, opinions change. You start to grow and develop as a human being. Right now, I'm in a position that I never thought I would be in 10 years ago, with pretty much a family. And you compare that to the guy I was when I was 30. Completely different bloke.
Oh, yeah. Same here.
And not only that, but some people just go out of their way to be offended. And it doesn't matter what it is. One of the best examples I can think of about this is in the Discworld books. The Discworld books, if you haven't read them, it's like a fantasy series. It's basically what would happen if Lord of the Rings had a sense of humour. They're brilliant. Go check them down. They're great. There's a city in it called Ankh-Morpork, and lots of dwarves come down and they live in the city. And there's this campaign that's been set up called the Campaign for Equal Heights. Not rights, heights, because they're dwarves. And it's all about equal rights for dwarves. But the thing is, there are no dwarves in it, because the actual dwarves are far too busy getting on with their day-to-day life than getting involved in that sort of thing. And I get the feeling that most of the people that get offended are getting offended on behalf of the people who should get offended, but don't actually care to get offended because they don't give a shit.
Exactly. No, fully agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a question for you, Steve.
Go on.
Is the Terminator fully dead as a franchise?
I would say yes. I honestly think that the Terminator franchise was dead the moment that Terminator 3 crawled out the ocean. As far as I'm concerned, it had a brief moment of life again with Terminator Salvation, because say what you like about it, at least it told an original angle on the story, but every
I
single
loved
movie has been the same. Terminator gets sent to the past to protect someone, another Terminator gets sent from the future to kill them, and yeah, they're all the same. It's dead, it's done, move on, do something else.
Exactly. Terminator Genesis was not loved at all.
No.
A lot of people kind of hated that it kind of took liberties with Terminator and Terminator 2. Terminator Salvation, I really liked. I thought it was a brave new direction, separate from the original movies, and worked really well.
Yep.
Terminator TV series, I enjoyed it, but it's not something that I would go out of my way to acknowledge.
Yeah, I haven't seen that, so I'll take your word on that one.
Yeah. And Dark Fate. Have you seen Dark Fate?
I haven't. I couldn't bring myself to watch it.
Okay. It's not bad. It's actually enjoyable, I will admit. But no matter what, a lot of people kind of lost interest in the Terminator with that movie. And it lost over 120 million, I believe. And Linda Hamilton returned in this movie, for God's sake. James Cameron, he was a producer on it and a co-writer on it as well.
Right.
But where the problem with the Terminator franchise is it was our generation of stuff. And I don't think the people who have come along in this business know what they want from that. No. Realistically, the sequel shouldn't have worked. Terminator 2 Judgment Day shouldn't have worked, but they made it work.
They made it work by taking a different angle with it, because the original was basically a horror story.
Yeah, and no one has seemed to learn in any of these Terminator movies that when you leave a piece of a robot behind, it's gonna come back. Mm-hmm. It means someone else is gonna build one. Rise of the Machines was not good.
No.
Sorry, Bill. I know that you worked on that one.
I lost interest in that movie the moment that he put on the star sunglasses.
That's exactly the point that I lost interest in it as well, which was in the first 5 minutes. Oh, it was just really and Christiana Loken hasn't done anything on that level ever again.
No, she
I don't believe. Who was the Terminatrix? Ugh.
Yeah, that was another thing as well. There was just really crass exploitation. It's, what can we do now? Oh, I know. Let's make the new Terminator blonde and have big boobs. That'll be great.
Well, she doesn't start with big boobs. She grows big boobs when she gets pulled over by a copper.
Yeah.
And it's like some machine in the future decided that we have created the perfect killing machine. What can we put on it? Let's give it the ability to grow its tits. I'm sorry. It was just such a dramatic misfire. I went to cinemas to see it, and I think I didn't stay. I'm pretty sure I marched out of it. I am going to give a controversial statement. The Terminator franchise should have carried on from Terminator Salvation.
Okay, no, I agree with that.
Terminator Salvation does not get the credit that it deserves. I thought it was really good. I still like it. Any movie that has 9 Inch Nails doing a movie in the trailer instantly wins me over. But the movie itself was just so good. And it was a disappointment when Terminator Genesis came along, because that was the point where I felt really separated from that franchise. Because it was trying to reboot it, change all the characters. Like, you had Emilia Clarke, who is no Sarah Connor.
No.
At all. Jay Courtney, who is no Kyle Reese.
No.
Right? And I remember I was sat with my partner and we were watching it, and she turned around halfway through and saying, "This is really shit." I was struggling in my head to find one defense so we could carry on watching the rest of it. And I really couldn't. Even the guy they got for John Connor was just wrong.
No, I know, right?
And it was like, whoa, this is just... and when we finished watching it, it was like, I'm never going to watch that again. Because it's a bit painful. And it's not the director's fault. The director is incredibly confident and really good director. Alan... I want to say Alan Martin. No. Alan Taylor, Alan Martin. I do apologise if he is listening.
Sorry, I'll cut that out.
But yeah, and he directed stuff like Game of Thrones and a lot of good stuff. And it was like, if this is the script they gave you and told you it's this or nothing,
why didn't you use nothing?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's the director's vision on it. And I'm sure sitting around the table, there was really good ideas around it.
Yeah.
The only positive is you had Arnie in it, which I think they're too scared to step away from having Arnie in it.
Okay. Well, it's too late now. The die is cast.
It is.
Oh, well.
Yes. In other news, Corey Feldman says he might be done with acting. The Lost Boy stuff has said he might be done with acting, which I don't think is a bad thing, and that's nothing against Corey Feldman, but I know there was a lot of embarrassment over his documentary that he made and its screening night, which was wince-inducing.
Yeah, didn't it all crash or something? And he was saying that they were being hacked.
It was.
I've only seen little clips. I'm not sure of the entire context of it.
I was watching like the footage, and I've seen the YouTube videos. And if this was done for publicity purposes and stuff like that, okay, yeah, it was mildly entertaining. But you can see the press and the people who are there when it's like, oh, we've crashed, and we've got this guy there on a laptop who's basically just saying, oh, we're definitely getting hacked from the mainframe. And he's basically saying all the shit you'd expect to hear in like a bad BBC Spooks episode. And Corey Feldman's then reiterating to everyone, he's like turning around with his microphone saying, they're hacking us, they don't want us to see this. And it's like,
Or it could just be the guy who was bluffing while he restarted Windows.
yes.
You know, VLC player decided it was going to crash just at that particular moment and take Windows down with it, so he just needs a reboot. There you go, sorted. Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, and it's funny because I watched The Lost Boys again the other night, just on a whim.
Really, I'd watch it on the television. Hey!
You know, Steve, this is why you don't have any real friends. Now, getting on that, I'm just going to move on to some more quick-fire stories.
Okay.
The fact that the South Park creators, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, have signed a $900 million deal to make 14 South Park movies for Paramount Plus.
Oh my god.
This is 20 years overdue.
Yeah.
South Park the movie was over 20 years ago, and it's still one of the most hilarious movies ever. A lot of us have grown up, and some of us haven't. But it's going to be interesting. I reckon some of it's not going to be like Futurama's Bender's Big Score and stuff like that. You know, these are actually going to be movies, so they've got to go all out, because 14 movies is a hell of a lot. 900 million? That's ridiculous.
That is absolutely ridiculous. I don't think it's worth that much.
And speaking of 900 million, do you know that No Time to Die reportedly needs 900 million just to break even? That film is flopping.
Hard.
Very hard. You know, and I'm going to blame a lot of the pushback. You know, they've pushed this film back so many times that, I don't think a majority of people care anymore. The fact that they're kind of stepping away from James Bond with this movie, spoiler alert, but they are. And the word on the street is apparently he's going to be replaced by a female Jane Bond, maybe? Who knows? I think that's not sitting well, and I think people are like, why do you have to put James Bond? You know, why does this have to fall into that woke culture?
I don't know.
You know, you can easily do a spin-off of a female James Bond if you wanted. I think there's a lot of people who are a bit disinterested, and it's going to be a very wince-inducing week when that is released, because you will know within the first 4 or 5 days how badly that film is going to go.
Well, it's taken long enough for it to come out, even before the pandemic. So let's just, as far as I'm concerned, let's just rip this Band-Aid off and see how we get.
And I'll watch it. You know, the initial jokes that we had about No Time to Die being no time to get released. You know, unfortunately it is going to be a thing. I mean, MGM have kind of signed up to Prime. Mm-hmm. The biggest mistake that they can do now is release that movie within a week of it being released theatrically.
Which they will do, because that is the style at the time.
They need to extend those theatrical windows again.
Yeah.
I mean, Suicide Squad got a week release, I think, in the UK, and maybe something like 5 days theatrically before it was released on HBO Max, or it might have been released on HBO Max the same time as the American release. But they need longer, and I am in favour of going back to the model. Give them at least 8 weeks. 8 weeks theatrical run. At a push, 6. Give them 6 weeks before you catapult them into an avenue where piracy is going to give it to everyone for free.
Well, I agree.
No, so that's basically it. Well, I think I'm going to leave it there for these kind of stories. It's been a bit of a different approach this week because we thought there's enough going on there that people are going to want to hear about. So
yeah, this is just a little taste of the stuff that you can get from Poddywood After Dark, which, in case you don't know, you can get, as Andy said earlier, as a subscriber to us on patreon.com/Poddywood.
And we want to hear from you guys. We want to hear your reactions to these stories, what you think of them. Obviously, new news comes out every single day, so this might be outdated, and new developments in these stories might have come along by that point. Mm-hmm. But we want to hear from you as movie-loving people, as movie industry people. We want to hear your take on stuff. We want to get engaged in discussion. We don't want it to be a slanging match or a cancel culture movement or this, that, or the other. We want to hear serious, debates and thoughts and sources and things like that. So get engaged. Talk with us through all of our channels, all of our comments boxes, inboxes if you need to.
Yes. And you can get in touch with us all over the place on Facebook and Twitter at Poddywood. You can follow us on Reddit at r/Poddywood. And in case you're also interested, Poddywood is now available on Audible.
It is, indeed. Join us on the Audibles.
Yes. So I think now that was the end of After Dark. But before we go, we still need to nominate 5.
Now's the time to nominate 5.
Nominate 5?
Yes, nominate 5. Not 3 or 4 or 6 or 9. Now's the time to nominate 5.
There we go.
We got it in.
Yeah, it's not quite as much fun if we haven't got a guest who's then going, oh my god, what is that song all about? Because we've heard it a lot, you see. We've heard that song.
Steve hears it more than anyone because he has to edit the show together. And aren't you glad we actually do it live?
Yeah. He says, noting the runtime of this particular episode and then realising that's the rest of his week up the spout. Anyway, so what is Nominate 5 about, Andy?
Well, Nominate 5 is usually the segment of the show where we ask our guest, whoever it would be, to nominate 5 of a certain category. And because we do not have a special guest this week, I basically threw it on to my co-host and editor and man of many talents, all of them minor, Steve Hester.
Hello.
And because he is such an utter gaming nerd, more than he is a movie nerd.
Yes, that's true.
Yes, I've asked him this week to nominate 5 of the cheesiest game conversions into movies.
Yes.
And if he doesn't get the countdown right this week, I have no f***ing idea how.
Yeah, I've got no excuse, have I?
You have no excuse. We are definitely cursed. So let's try. We'll do it slowly so we don't screw it up.
Okay.
So, Steve.
We'll do it slowly then. All right. Before we carry on, I was wrecking my main, the worst.
You're wrecking your main?
I was wrecking my main, man.
You're wrecking my main, man.
I was racking my brain trying to think, okay, what were the worst ones? And all I could think of were movies by Uwe Boll. I was thinking of all the best ones, and all the best ones seem to have happened recently, and I haven't seen a lot of those ones yet because I've just not got around to it. So these are ones which have come out over the last 20 years, and they're just cheesy. They're not bad, they're not good, they're just cheesy.
Right, okay. Well,
Okay.
This is going to be interesting, so let's start us off at number 5.
All right, now you may disagree with a few of these, but number 5, I'm going to go with Doom. And I'm not talking about the one which came out recently. I'm talking about the one with Rock the Dwayne Johnson and Carl Urban.
The other one is Doom Annihilation, by the way.
Yes.
Which I haven't seen, so I cannot comment.
I haven't seen either, but I read early reviews and I decided that I would do better things with my life. So, Doom, it's basically aliens. It sidestepped an awful lot of the demonic influence that was in the game, all the stuff to do with hell, and there's no pentagrams everywhere and so on. And it's more based around ancient markers that are in our DNA that when get triggered can either turn you into a superhero or turn you into a monster. And it's roughly 90 minutes to 2 hours of guys with guns running around and getting picked off one by big monsters, but everything's all done mostly on screen. It's all animatronics or puppets and everything, which I always think works out better as terms of monsters than something which is CGI. You can always tell the difference when it comes to CGI. And in there as well, you've also got one of the few turns of The Rock as a bad guy.
Yeah, you know what? I love this movie. Because it's brainless fun. And also, it is one of those movies like Deep Rising that qualifies for an amazing tax credit from having any kind of ethnicity in a movie. And how much they must have got for putting Dexter Fletcher in there as Pinky.
Dexter Fletcher.
Dexter Fletcher. But you've got Carl Urban, Australian.
Yep.
You got Rosamund Pike, who is English, as best to my knowledge.
Uh-huh.
You got your big Samoan beefcake in Dwayne Johnson, who's also American, I guess.
Yep.
You got a guy who plays Destroyer, who's black. Then you've got there's Goat, there's Duke, there's Portman. I even remember all the names.
Jesus, I'm really impressed at that one, you know.
Yeah, I know. And it was directed by Andres Botskoayak. I know I've got that name wrong. I so apologize if you're listening. But I actually went to the cinemas to see it. And I have since seen the uncut version as well. And it's such an inoffensive watch. You know, it is just a ridiculous action movie with lots of gore and blood. And you even get a laugh with the whole first-person scene, which is freaking really ridiculous.
Yeah, you got to admit that the whole first-person scene is really well done as well.
It's really well done, but I remember the laughter in the cinemas when people were watching it. And it was like, you know what? If you're part of the bloody disgusting crowd and you just want to see some just out-and-out carnage and gore and stuff like that, and it's just a really fun movie. It doesn't get its due, I don't think. And Dwayne was originally offered the John Grimm role.
Yeah, he was, and then he ended up swapping it because he thought the Sarge role was more interesting.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and I think this was the first time I ever heard Dwayne Johnson swear in a movie.
Yeah.
And, 14 days were spent on that first-person shooter sequence. That's like half of the amount of time it took to make the movie.
It's ridiculous,
Semper Fi,
isn't it?
Man, Semper Fi. But no, I'll agree with you there. I'm a fan of Dune. And Doom. I'm a fan of Dune as well, if you want to go for real video game conversions. But no,
None of your
Doom,
Westwood shit here.
I do actually own on Blu-ray, and I do crack it out every now and again.
Yeah, what you do in your privacy of your own home, that's entirely up to you. Okay, next, number 4, I am going to go for Tomb Raider. The Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider.
It's just called Lara Croft Tomb Raider, isn't it?
Yeah.
It didn't have a kind of subheading like Cradle of Life. That was the second one.
Yeah, but it's actually kind of weird. I suppose you can kind of meld the two of them in together because they are relatively very indistinguishable from each other. But they are just basic, cheesy adventure movies. There's a nice little kind of time travel element, but the plots of both films are more or less identical. She ends up going on an adventure after a MacGuffin. There's a guy from her past. The first one is Jared Butler. No, wait, the first one is Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig.
The second one's Jared Butler. And then they have to grab some kind of mystical device before some evil person gets hold of it. And it's lifted directly out of the games. It really is pretty much lock, stock, and barrel. In terms of style and feel, even though not in exact content. And they're just... I don't think they're great films by any stretch of the imagination, but they are one of those that you just... If it's on, you can just go, oh yeah, I remember this, and just kind of switch your brain off for an hour or so.
Very true. I mean, I've got no beef with the Lara Croft movies, the Angelina Jolie ones. I didn't enjoy the more recent Tomb Raider movie. It didn't offer anything new for me. But when you've got Chris Barry playing Hillary, the butler,
Yes.
In the originals, it took me back to when I used to play the game and I used to follow you around with that silver tray.
Yes. Winston, he was called in the game.
Winston in the
Winston,
game, yeah, and
yes.
it's Hillary in the movies.
Yeah, because Winston was an
And,
old man.
And it was freaking annoying because it was only the tutorial level, but he'd like follow you around everywhere. And in the movie, there's the scene where she's like smashing like the place up, and he holds up a silver tray to like protect himself. I was like, oh, nice! That's a nice little throw in there. I'd love to wrap it around his face. Following around. But no, that was directed by, I believe, Simon West.
Yeah, it was.
Who directed it, who's a very kind of undervalued action director who directed Con Air.
Yeah, and now that's another cheesy great as well.
Oh, yeah. And to be honest...
Same school as The Rock.
Yeah, and the one thing about Lara Croft Tomb Raider, there was actually a bit of effort put into the villain, where a lot of them are usually just...
Very blank, very generic, very cookie cutter.
Yeah, pick him out of a bag. Okay, no, good choice. Number 3.
Number 3, and this whole list is going to be a bit predictable, really, because if you're looking for cheese, then, cheese just exists on its own level. Number 3 is going to be the Paul W.S. Anderson Mortal Kombat. It's the first one. It's not the second one, because Annihilation is just absolutely rotten. Annihilation is shockingly bad. That doesn't even deserve to be put on a so bad it's good list. It's just bad. But the first one, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It sticks close to the formula of the game, with it being a tournament on an island, fate of the world at stake, yada, yada, yada. It's got kind of a little bit of a hint of something like Enter the Dragon. Everything just kind of fits nicely. They're not trying to crowbar in too many characters. Each of the characters have got their own little arcs. Nothing kind of brilliant or groundbreaking. Some of the martial arts sequences are good. Some of the effects are goddamn awful. The least said about Reptile at the end, the better. By God.
Oh my God.
And you've got what's his name? Is it Kari Tagawa, who played Shao Kahn? Who they've got back in the recent games actually to play Shao Kahn. So it's kind of come full circle that way with him coming back. But yeah, I love this film. I think it's absolute cheese, absolute schlock, and in nod to our guest from the other week, Russell Mulcahy, it's also got Christopher Lambert in it as Raiden.
It does indeed. And even better than that, what was I thinking? It's got the best version of Kano in any of the movies. Yep. Trevor Goddard from Deep Rising.
Yep.
Who is the ultimate lookalike for Aidan Callahan on the planet. But yeah, I was so excited for that movie as a kid. As a teenager, just waiting for it to come out. And it felt like it took years to come out, when realistically it was probably only 6 months.
Yeah.
But it felt so long, because this was after Street Fighter, and I remember all the buzz around Street Fighter. With Mortal Kombat coming out, I still remember the day I saw the first footage in a trailer for that movie, and I was so excited. Absolutely brilliant choice. This was back before Paul W.S. Anderson kind of became that director for hire on all video game movies, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. And also I can't remember who you said was the guy that played Kano, but his portrayal of the character then influenced the makers of the game to then turn Kano into was it a Kiwi or was he Australian? Whatever it was, they ended up changing the character because of his performance in the film.
Yeah, it was the late Trevor Goddard, who's actually English. He was from Surrey.
Oh, right.
Would you believe? Yes, the last time anyone saw him was he died in 2003, shortly after doing Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh yes,
Curse
of
the
course,
Pearl.
yes.
He played Grapple in that.
Yeah, I remember seeing him in that now.
And he had done a lot of action movies and stuff like that. So he was he'd always kind of double as a Australian when he wasn't Australian, as far as you know. But, he was in Deep Rising, which is what I always remember him. We've got to do an episode on Deep Rising.
We have
alone.
to, yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be our first ever watch-along for people. We're going to invite people to come and watch this with us. But, he'd done a lot of TV, done loads of stuff like Baywatch and Renegade. Renegade. What a show.
Ooh, looks like he's getting away, Renegade.
Yeah. The Johnny Cage character was actually modelled on Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Oh, yeah, without question.
And I'd love to see, those were $500 sunglasses, asshole. I would love to have seen it. Apparently, there's a bit of a drive at the moment to have WWE's The Miz play Johnny Cage.
That would work so well.
Isn't that inspired?
That would work so well.
Because the Miz character is basically Johnny Cage since day one without the martial arts. And you can teach martial arts or get him a stunt double. You know, God knows if that will be Damien Sandow. There's a little throwback to WWE fans there. But yeah, I would be so for that. But no, great choice. Going to screw up the countdown now. Are we at number 2?
We are at number 2. Number 2 is Resident Evil.
Ah, the first one?
Yes, the first one. Because no offense to Russell, but there was definitely a law of diminishing returns with these movies. Even though each of the movies did end up making enough back to warrant further sequels, in terms of actual quality, oh no, they started low and then they kept on getting worse. But there is something about the first one, which is a cheesy, schlocky, dirty horror flick, which is just switch your brain off material. There's nothing particularly extreme in it for anyone's taste, really. So I suppose you could say it's a bit middle of the road. But it's just got wonderful moments like Milla Jovovich jumping off a wall and kicking a dog in the face. It's just it's worth the price of admission alone for that. Also, seeing how long Michelle Rodriguez, seeing how long she lasts after getting bitten by a zombie. She gets bitten within like the first 5 minutes, and she's still human by the last 5 minutes.
It's the entire movie.
Yeah,
to actually turn into a zombie where everyone else would turn within 5 minutes. I mean, this was Paul W.S. Anderson again. Mm-hmm. I remember it fondly. I did go to the cinemas to see it as well.
Yeah,
seems I've been to see a lot of these at the cinemas. I think I'd seen more game conversions than any other type of movie. Michelle Rodriguez was very adamant that she wanted to be involved in this project from even before it was greenlit. Mm-hmm. She was a big fan of the games. It really is just another fun zombie movie. I remember it having a different title originally. I think it was called Resident Evil Ground Zero. And I think they changed it following
9/11.
September 11, yeah. Because I remember the first kind of things of it being Resident Evil Ground Zero. And they changed. And Milla Jovovich had an entire career based off these franchises. I mean, she kept going all throughout the 2000s from this franchise, really.
As I mentioned the other week, she married Paul W.S. Anderson. And I think he directed the first 2, could be wrong with that. I think someone else might have directed the second one.
Yes, he did the first 2, and then Russell did the third.
But then I also think he came back for the last one, which I haven't seen, because at that point I was so baffled trying to keep up with what the ongoing plot was that I just lost all track of it. So now that's that done.
And so people may not remember that Milla Jovovich wasn't the original choice for Alice. Originally it was going to be Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Imagine how different that would have been.
Yeah, staking him through the heart instead. Yeah.
But yes, and the main reason it had a mainly kind of British cast was because it was actually filmed a lot in Europe.
Yeah.
I think it was Germany. I'm pretty sure it was Germany. I think it was,
yeah. I think going back a few bits, actually, I think Doom was filmed in Poland or somewhere. Just to try and keep the budget down.
Yeah. And it's amazing how many films, game conversions especially, that happens quite a lot with, because I think Mario Brothers was even done in, I want to say Mexico. Could be wrong,
it was somewhere where there was like a massive heat wave or something, and they were filming in an old cement factory. I think, I actually think it was somewhere like Baltimore or something like that. I could be wrong.
But yes, Resident Evil, this has the distinction for me for being the one film where the film snapped in the cinemas more than 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Zombies eating the reels.
And they would not give the money back, saying, well, you did eventually get to see all of the film. That was a genuine excuse from the cinema who did not want to give a refund. It's like, well, you actually stayed and watched all of it.
Bastards.
Well, how about you give me a free ticket, which I did eventually get.
Good.
And then I spent it on dog soldiers.
Nah, that's better.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Okay, then. So I guess we're at number one. And
Yes.
I have a feeling I might know where this is going, but I will just go with it and let's just see if we get the right thing here. What is your number one, Steve?
Well, I guess you couldn't see that coming, could you? Yes, it is. It is the ultimate cheesy movie video game adaptation. It is Street Fighter. Not the wonderful Street Fighter anime that Jay brought up ages ago. No, this is the Jean-Claude Van Damme, Raul Julia, absolute cheese fest that is so wonderful. This is for me the very definition of so bad it's good.
I love this movie.
And so do I. This movie is so dreadful. The acting in it is awful, particularly what's his name, Sawada. But Kono, a fleet of our transports again. It's no. Okay, no. This isn't even a language problem. This isn't even an accent problem. This is an acting problem.
Oh my god.
Could they have not just got someone who knew how to act? He's got like one line in the entire film. The guy the old guy that they had in Temple of Doom and Steven Spielberg was feeding his lines to him off camera. He put in a better performance for this, and he could speak no English at all. He was doing that phonetically.
Oh, there is so much to talk on this movie. God. This would be an entire episode, and we are going to dedicate an episode just to this movie, because this is how we became friends.
Yeah.
Years after this movie was released, we had, I think it was on Facebook, me and you were having a back and forth and started quoting terrible lines from Street Fighter to each other. And then we knew we've become friends. This is it. Because no one else knew what the hell we were talking about. And I'm there like, quick, change the channel.
Oh, so good. Yeah, if we do a watch along of Deep Rising, we need to do one of Street Fighter.
Oh, Street Fighter might even come first. But how? How can you miscast a movie to this level of badness?
It is shocking. It is so shocking, and probably one of the biggest miscasts compared to the game is actually one of its best features, and that is the late Raul Julia as Bison. Because you see the character in the game, and we're talking someone who is jacked. He is built. He's got one of those triangular body shapes and muscles upon muscles. He's got all these psychic powers, and then in reality, okay, yes, he was suffering from terminal cancer at the time, but you've got this rather skinny
Gomez Adams.
Yeah, you got Gomez Adams. But watching Raul Julia play Bison is just an absolute joy and a treasure. Just see him chew the scenery, because like I say, he was suffering and he was dying, and he knew he was dying, and he did this movie for his kids, and he went out and just had as much fun doing this part as you could possibly imagine. And just lines like, "For you, the day that Bison visited your village was the most important day of your life, but for me, it was Tuesday." His delivery's perfect. It's absolutely wonderful. He's totally miscast, but by God, it's so good to watch.
Name a person in this movie who is not miscast.
Ming-Na Wen.
Well, that's fair enough. That is fair enough. But, I mean, Van Damme, this was right in the middle of his major cocaine problems, and you can tell, right? He was doing 10 grand's worth of cocaine a week during this movie. M. Bison was not the problem, right? Whoever was supplying that amount of cocaine to the set is the problem. But the studio, I think it was Columbia, I think they had to actually hire a wrangler to keep an eye on him.
Yeah.
Right? But this person was just as bad as Van Damme. And he was doing just as much.
Mm-hmm. You've also got the issue with David E. D'Souza, who was the writer of it, who then said, "No, if I'm going to write it, I want to direct it as well." And he'd come off things like Die Hard and everything, so he had a decent track record with writing really good action. But then they basically said, "No, if you want to do this, you've got to finish the script over the weekend. So it was a rush script to begin with. And then they only had something like 6 months to do everything with so little prep time. And it's amazing it even made it to the screen, let alone that it's barely coherent.
In the fact that this movie is a success in the fact that it exists.
Yeah.
Right? And it is the greatest example of a terrible movie being so bad, it's great.
It's wonderful.
Right? It fills me with joy. I have to watch it once every couple of years just to remind myself. And when you see Van Damme in his scenes, and apparently everyone was just sick of Van Damme at this point, and this was the point where his career just started to nosedive. And you have someone like Kylie Minogue playing Cammy White. Cammy?
Yeah, I think it was Cammy White, yeah.
And apparently she was having an affair with Van Damme at the time from the press and stuff like that. But she was absolutely praised on this set. You know, everyone loved her. And Adrian Cronauer, who was the real-life DJ from Good Morning Vietnam.
Doing the voice, Good Morning Shadowloo. Yeah.
And there's nice little cameos and stuff like that in there. But the movie, it's hard to tell who steals this entire movie, and I am going with Andrew Brynarski. And you don't know who that is, do you?
Wait, Andrew Brynarski, is he the one that's playing Zangief? Yeah.
Yes, the same guy.
Paid.
The same guy who played Butterfinger in A Hudson Hawk steals the entire movie with every line he is given. They've just said, "You are a big, dumb Russian who does not seem to get what living is."
Yeah.
You know, anything about life, anything that exists in the world, you can't even do a thumbs up. You can do a thumb to the side. And that's supposed to be this cute little thing that he does. The fact that he's been working for free, and he genuinely believes when he's looking at a van full of explosives heading towards him, if you turn the channel on the security monitor, it will stop it happening.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, you know what? We need to do a watch along with this. We need to do a watch along with this without question. This would be just so good.
Yes, because when we get to the Blanca stuff, that is just a whole new level of nuts.
Yeah, but anyway, that's my pick. That's my nominate 5 for this week.
I so knew that was coming in at number 1.
There's no way that it couldn't have been.
No.
As soon as you gave me that nominate 5, I thought, no, Street Fighter has to be at number 1.
I am even going to ask Jay to come in and do that watch along with us.
Oh, yeah.
He is going to love it.
That'd just be insane.
It's just going to be us laughing for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So we hope you enjoy it.
Yeah.
Wow, well, that is an absolutely fantabulous nominate 5 with a few surprises in there.
Thank you.
We will not be doing a Poddywood After Dark because we have done it here on this episode today. So we are sparing our alcohol consumption after the show. But we thank you anyway for having the interest to come along. And we hope that some of you who have listened to our inane ramblings today in regards to stuff happening in the industry and our thoughts on it would like to come and join us and have a chat on, come on to Patreon, chuck us a little money our way. We really appreciate all of your support.
Yes, and while you're there, there's only one question left to ask.
What's in the bag?
What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box?
What's in the box?
Oh, well, at least it is a box this week.
Yes, you did. I did that once. I did the what's in the bag thing once. Jesus Christ.
You actually said it as well in Poddywood After Dark on one episode.
Did I? Oh, okay.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to rub you in the bag while you tell everyone what it's about.
Okay, well, What's in the Box is our segment of the show where Andy tries to raise up my cinematic learnings beyond, well, most of the stuff that we've talked about today, to be quite honest. He's going to pull out the name of a movie from a box which is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and then I have to go away and watch that movie. If I have already seen it, then another film gets picked out of the box until we find someone that I haven't seen, and then I watch that. So, Andy, What is it going to be?
Okay, so I pulled a couple out here because you have a tendency at the moment to actually have seen the first two, so I have three to hand. And we'll go with the first one, which is Master and Commander, The Far Side of the World.
I have not seen Master and Commander, The First Side of the World, so you don't need the other two.
Perfect, they can go back in the box till next week.
Yes.
Directed by Peter Weir from 2002, starring Russell Crowe, James Darcy.
A thin Russell Crowe.
Thin Russell Crowe, yes. And it's classed as one of the greatest naval battle movies ever made.
Okay, well, I look forward to that one.
Okay, and you will hear what Steve thinks about that next week when we return with Richard Mirish as our guest. We're going to talk about a whole lot of movies. We're talking about The Matrix. We're talking about Godzilla vs. Kong, and what exactly happened with the House of Wax studio fire that burnt the thing to the ground. Bill Daly says that Richard Mirr's smoking is the reason. I don't think that's true, but do you reckon if this is the major swerve and it turns out it was Bill that is burning on fire?
Yeah, that'll be Bill.
That'll be Bill.
Yeah.
That'll be Bill.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you for listening to our Inane Ramblings this week. Hope you've enjoyed it. If not, well, tough shit. And
Yeah, go f yourselves.
But if you have enjoyed it, we will see you next time here on Poddywood. Bye.
Take care. Pax by Sonica.